Hello everyone out there. I'm going to go ahead and play with the Infinio acceleration product. In fact, we're going to install it into the Wall Network lab together, kind of for the first time. I've played with it in beta and some other builds, but this is a generally available build, version 1.5.1, build 13371. And we're going to go through the installation and just see what it's all about. So far, it looks like there's a little video that tells me what it's going to do, and I'm going to avoid that because I already kind of know. And there's a list of things that we're going to be guided through with this installer. I'll go ahead and accept the terms because, of course I read them while we're not on camera. And let's walk through what the wizard wants. So first we need to connect the installer to Vcenter. All right, that's kind of an obvious step. I don't like to use IP addresses, so my Vcenter is Vcenter, creative, I know. .glacier.local. I've gone ahead and made a service account in previous installs that I'm going to use. So I have a service account. They all start with SVC, and I have one specifically for Infinio because I like to use isolated role-based service accounts. I think we can do it without the full name there. So let me just try it without the name. Okay, let's see if that connects. And okay, cool. Retrieving hosts and data stores. That sounds like it's successful to me. I don't think I want to accelerate a data store just yet. I think I just want to install the management console. So let's go with, I guess, the non-recommended route by installing the console. And we'll accelerate something later. So I'll go ahead and click next. And it looks like it's figuring out what's in my environment. So the first question, we need an ESXi host to deploy the management virtual machine. It's going to use 4 gigs of memory and 1 vCPU. That's pretty lightweight. I can handle that. Okay, yep. And it's got all my different hosts. So it looks like this one's using the least amount of RAM. I wish I had more RAM in these hosts. 32 gig felt like a lot at the time, but now it's kind of low. Now we need a data store. And fortunately, I have tons of storage. Right now I'm kind of flush. So let me put it on NAS 3. And a network. So I have one just for virtual machines, also creatively called virtual machines or VMs. Okay, so we've got a host, we've got a data store, we've got a network. That's kind of the 3 food groups that we need. And by default, it looks like it's asking for a name or suggesting one of infinio-console.glacier.local. I'm okay with that. It doesn't really matter to me. And I use DHCP for most everything because it's kind of cloud-like, right? I don't want to manually have to manage these IPs. So we'll go ahead and use DHCP, and that does exist on that port group. And now we need an admin credential. Okay. Oh, and I get to choose the name, so I don't have to just default to admin. Let's go with something really fun, and you might kind of see this coming with SpongeBob or Bob l'Éponge, depending on what country you're from. And we'll put a password in here. And apparently I'm good at passwords because it's strong. I can't type them very well, though. There we go. And they match. That's kind of handy. It tells you that you're not picking a crappy password and that they match. I guess you would know if it's just the word password that it wasn't very strong. And now adjust vCenter database retention policy. Okay. Well, that's true. So it's saying that my retention policy is greater than 30 days, which is true. I like to have a lot of retention on my logs, and the database itself, I allow it to grow pretty big because I have all sorts of products running in there and I have log insight, etc. So I'm okay with this. Otherwise, it's kind of cool that it could change your policy for you, give some example growth sizes and things like that. So that's handy. I don't think a lot of people even ever play with the retention policy, so this may be a learning experience. You've never actually even heard of this before. But say no, I'm cool with it being modified because I did it. And now there's a review. We're going to put it on host number 1 on the NAS 3 data store using my VMs port group for the networking. I'm using DHCP for the IP address, and the fully qualified name is Infinio-console. That's cool. And automatic support. That's even cool too. You can opt to not even send any data to the manufacturer. So by default, it is enabled, and I'm okay with that. We'll give them some extra data. So let's click the button and hopefully good things happen. So it sounds like, okay, import virtual machine. Let me pull up my vSphere client. There we go. Oh, yep. And it's deploying the OVF template for me. So that's kind of cool because normally when you deploy an OVA or an OVF, you're having to go through manually and you're using probably this option to deploy the template. In this case, they've got a nicer front end to that. Let's see where this thing's being put. Okay, so just right in the root, and it's importing at a pretty decent speed. So everything's 1 gig in the lab, and I don't think the management VM is all that large. I think it's 1.5 gigabytes. So it shouldn't take that long. It's all using NFS to this particular data store. In fact, pretty much all my data stores are NFS because that is the best protocol in the world. So if you're not running NFS, you're really missing out, especially if you've looked at vSphere.next, and that's all I'll say about that. So it looks like it's right about done wrapping up on this thing. Let's go ahead and click on it and just see if it's true to form. Okay, so 1 CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, so it actually looks a little smaller than what they advertised with the 4, so it's about half that size. And it's powering on. Let's go back to the console setup and see where we're at. Oh, cool. So it's actually telling me how many megabits per second we're getting, which, who knows, 200-ish. I think that's pretty good for a 3+1 RAID 5 of SSDs inside of a very, very tiny Synology. I think it's the DS414 Slim that I have in there, so that's not too shabby. So now it is configuring the IP settings, so it's probably booting this thing up and giving it some settings. Let's see if we can pull that in there. Might take a little bit to actually load the console. Okay, so probably some things are happening behind the scenes. I don't actually have a login for it yet. None of the consoles are actually logged in. Let's go back to the... Oh, okay, so it already configured the IP settings. I guess that's the magic of having all flash as your home lab storage, which I highly advocate. I've got a couple articles on there that talk about why I like it. And we're done. So it's interesting. I'm at around 7 minutes. And so now apparently we can go to the IP address that was given by DHCP and manage this thing. So let me go ahead and just pull open the browser here. 107, I believe it was. Okay, certificate, probably self-sign, no problem. And there we go. So let's just check back and see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So the wizard is done. And let's take a look at the product. This is kind of cool for me. This is really the first time I've seen the GA version, so we're kind of seeing the coolness at the same time. Now I have to remember what I did. I know it was SpongeBob, or Bob l'Éponge. I love the French version of his name. And let's log in with my password that I always goof up. It's so hard even I can't type it. Okay, so there we go. I've got my 30-day eval running, and there's really nothing going on because I haven't accelerated anything. I think we're going to stop here because we have the management installed, and I'll probably play with the acceleration, and we'll talk about that in the blog posts. Hope you've enjoyed this little preview of what it takes to install the Infinio Accelerator Management Platform, and little side note there, wow, that was pretty darn easy. Hopefully the data stores portion is equally as easy. Don't miss out on my future videos. Become a YouTube subscriber today. Do you crave more content on home labs, technical certifications, deep dives, product reviews, and geeky shenanigans? Wall Network is also available in blog format at wallnetwork.com.